In this video, I will show you how to install Docker on your system, and also we are going to validate our installation with some basic Docker commands. The purpose of this session is to get you more familiar with Docker. So let's get started. Open a web browser and search for Docker. Let's go to the documentation page. Here, select the option download and install. Now, based on your operating system, choose an option. In my case, I will choose Docker Desktop for Mac, and I will select option Mac with Intel chip. Now it will start downloading a DMG file. I'm going to stop it. So I have already installed the Docker on my system, but like if you scroll down on this page, you will see the instruction on how to use this DMG file to install Docker Desktop. Once the installation is complete, you will see this icon on the top. If you click on it, you will see several options, like you can quit the Docker Desktop, you can restart. For now, let's go to the option dashboard. So this option shows you the graphical user interface of the Docker. Validate our Docker installation with some basic commands. For this, you can open a new terminal session. Let me zoom in. Now you can type docker-v. This will show you the Docker version that you have installed. If you type command docker version, this gives us some information on the Docker client and Docker server, which is a Docker engine. You can see what is the API version, what is the client version, and so on. For more information, you can type docker info. This will give you some more details about client and server. For example, in server, you can see the number of containers is 0 and the image is 0 since this is a fresh install. Also, you can see some more information like OS type, number of CPUs, total memory, and so on. So if you go to Docker Desktop, in settings, there are some general settings that you can modify. Also in the resources, you can see the number of CPUs is 6, the memory is 2 GB, and so on. This information we can also see here. If about Docker architecture, whenever you install a Docker engine, these two components get installed, the Docker client and server. Let me open a new window and search Docker architecture. If you go to overview, so this gives a brief idea about the Docker architecture. So this client and Docker host exist on the host machine, and this registry could be the Docker hub from where you can push and pull the images. Now whenever you issue some commands like docker build, that goes through the Docker daemon. So if the image is present, we can use to create the containers out of it. So container is nothing but the running instance of an image. If the image is not present, we can pull these images through Docker hub. Let us now go through the basic commands again. Now our next command would be docker images. So right now it shows nothing because we don't have any images. But now let's say we want to create an image or we want to pull an image. What we can do is we can go to Docker hub and we can go to this explore tab. Now let's search for one image. Okay, let's go for this image. Now here you can see you have to copy and paste this to pull images. Now let's copy this in command line interface. Let's paste the command. Now you see we are using a default tag latest, and we are going to pull this from online Docker Hub library. The image name is Ubuntu. So if we hit the Docker images command again, we can see there is one new image created with the tag latest. So this has one image ID, and this image was created 4 weeks ago, and we have its size given. If we go to the Docker GUI, you can see in the images section we have created one new image, Ubuntu. Now if we want to remove this image, we can simply do docker rmi and give the image ID or the repository name. Okay, it has deleted the image now. Now let's try Docker images again. So we don't have any images. Let's talk about the containers. Now run command docker ps. It shows like container ID and images. As of now we don't have any containers running. So also one more note, if any point in time you want to read some more information about a given command, you can do docker, type the command and open it with --help. So this will show you the details about that specific command. Now the docker ps, this command lists the containers, and with the flag -a it shows all the containers. Let's see if we have any containers. Docker ps -a. Okay, so there are no containers. Now if we want to run a container, we can simply type the command docker run ubuntu. But in our case we have already deleted the image of this ubuntu. But let's see what happens if we run this command. So we are unable to find this image locally, and now docker is going to pull this image from Docker Hub. And once the download and installation is done, if we execute docker ps again, still we don't have any container. But if we run docker images, we have created a new image. Now let's talk about the command docker run. If we type docker run --help, so there are many options. So with this command we can run a new container. Now we are going to talk about two specific flag. One is I. So I stands for interactive, and T, allocate a sudo tty. So with this flag we will able to log into the Ubuntu session. For this type docker run -it, and we have to give the repository name in this Ubuntu. In this case we will type Ubuntu. Okay, so as you can see we are now inside the image Ubuntu. If we open a new terminal window and let's type docker ps, now it shows this container ID is running of this is the image. And if we hit the command docker start, Okay, it requires at least one argument. Okay, let's give the container ID. Okay, so container has started. We are already inside container. Now let's stop the Docker container. Docker stop and give the ID of the container. When we execute command, you will see in the Ubuntu session we executed the exit command implicitly, and we are now out of the Ubuntu session. Some basic system commands for this. Let's start our container again. Okay, so we can again go inside our Ubuntu. Now if you type docker stats, so this will give the stats for our containers. If we let's exit this, now type clear. Okay, let's talk about next command. It is docker system df. So it will show you the details like number of images, volumes and containers, and like size and reclaimable space. Okay, let's run docker ps. Okay, so we have 2 docker sessions running as of now. Okay, now let's stop these sessions. Let's stop this one. Docker stop. Okay, let's validate. Okay, now we only have one session. Now the last command is docker system prune. Let's go to help. So this command is used to remove the unused data. If we give the flag -a, it removes all unused images, not just the dangling ones. And if we use the flag f, we do not prompt for a confirmation. Now let's try executing this command. Docker system prune. Okay, so this will remove all stop container, all dangling images, dangling build cache, and all the network not used by at least one container. Let's press Y. So it has reclaimed some space. Now run docker ps. Okay, we have only one image remaining still, because if we don't give any flag, it will not delete any running containers. But if we want to remove all the running containers also, let's give a flag docker system prune -a. Okay, I think we need to stop the containers. Okay, let's stop the container. Docker stop Ubuntu. Okay, we cannot give the image name. Let's give a container ID. Okay, we have now stopped. Now let's try to remove everything again. Docker system prune -a. Okay, so now we have deleted the Ubuntu from the docker. Now let's see docker ps -a. So there are no containers. Now let's type docker images. So we don't have any images. So that's how you can create containers, create images, delete images, and remove everything. Understand what are images? So docker images are templates used to create the docker container, and basically these files, like, they have information about what all things will be required to create a container. And container is a running instance of image. So when you run an image, the container is created and images are stored in registries like in Docker Hub. So this is where the images are stored. Also, if you see, there is this tags uh, section. In this section you can pull uh, images with the specific tag, like specific version of an image. So for this example, let's try to pull this one. So we will do docker. Okay, we will just paste. Now this will start pulling the image. So this registry has many such images, and these images may have different tags. Okay, let's go back to the Docker architecture. So what happens is, when we execute the docker pull command, what we do is we only pull the image from the registry and store it in the images component. We don't create a container. But when we run the docker run command, it checks if the image is available locally. If not, you will get that image from Docker Hub, and then it will create a container out of it. Now let's take one more example. Let's search for, okay, this hello world. Okay, we are now going to do docker run hello world. Let's see what happens. So it is going to pull the latest image, and as you can see, hello from Docker, this image shows that installation appears to be working correctly. Okay, there is one more thing. So let's see, let's type command docker ps. So there are no running containers. If we see docker -a, okay, so this container is stopped. We are not currently using it. Let's see the example where we can start the interactive mode with my Ubuntu, and let's try to give it a name, my Ubuntu. So it is downloading an image. Now we do ls. We are inside the container. If we run the command docker ps again, we will see we have one running instance. Let me clear. We have one running instance, but now if we can also pause the image. Let's type docker pause and give the container id. Okay, so if we go back to the terminal session, we can see we cannot type anything. But if we want to resume this container, we can type docker unpause, and we can also try to give the name of the container. Okay, as you can see, we are again inside the container and the session is resumed. Okay, so we can also remove the container. Let's try to remove a container, but before that, let's try to kill a container. Now let's see docker and kill. We can give the name of the container my Ubuntu. We can see we have killed the container, and we are not in the Ubuntu session anymore. And we can also delete the container. Okay, so no container is running. Okay, let's remove this container. For this we will write docker rm container. If we see the list again, we have successfully removed the docker container. Let's talk about what is a docker file. So it is a text file with instruction to build images. So till now we have pulled the images from the docker hub, but if we want to create an image, we can do it with the docker file. Now for this, let's create a new folder on desktop. dir docker tutorial. Okay, now let's cd to this. Okay, now we will create a blank file called Dockerfile. So for this, create vi Dockerfile. Now there are some basic instructions that we have to give in this file. Okay, so first instruction would be from, and with this instruction we can give a base image using which we want to create a docker image. In our case we will use ubuntu. We can also, there is one more command, run. We can give argument like apt -get space update. One more option, cmd. With this we are going to give a command, and let's give echo hello. Okay, let's save this file with :wq. Okay, now to build an image out of this docker file, we will use docker build, and we will give the current location. Also with the flag t you can tag the image. So for now let's give a name to our image, my image 1, and you can also give a tag 1.0. so with this we will able to identify this image. Now let's click enter. Okay, invalid argument, it says repository name must be lowercase. Okay, let's give lowercase name. Okay, it has started building image. So okay, use docker scan to run. Okay, now we will see if the image is created with docker images. Okay, so there is one image created and it has the tag 1.0. Now let's try to run this image. Docker run my image 1. Okay, so what happened here is Docker tried to search for my image 1 with the tag latest, but we have created with the tag 1.0. Let's try to give the tag also 1.0. Okay, so as you can see we have printed hello. Okay, so let me give okay, let's cat this file, cat docker file. Okay, so using from, we gave the base image. So the difference between now run and cmd is this command is executed while the container is getting created. As you can see, run this apt get update. So this was during the image was getting created, and this cmd, this command only gets executed when you run your container, and container is nothing but the running instance of that image. Talk about what is Docker Compose. Docker Compose version. Okay, so we have Docker Compose already installed. So why do we need Docker Compose? So it is a tool for defining and running multi-container Docker application. So till now we have seen example of only running a container using one images, but in real world scenario, you are you may have an application which requires many services to run at once. To create the this multi-container application, we are going to use a YAML file to configure the application services, and we can start all of the services with single command docker compose up, and we can stop all the services with docker compose down command. Now why to use docker compose? So we can scale up the selected services whenever required, and we can also scale down different services. So we will be using the docker compose example in the tutorial to install airflow. So now let's talk about the last type of command. It's for docker volumes. Docker volume. Okay, so this using this command we can manage the docker volume. So what are volumes? So with volume we can decouple the containers from storage. Also, like multiple container can share the same storage and data, and also when you delete one container, the data is still there, and if you create another container, you can access the same data using the docker volumes. And creating docker volume is easy. Let's try to create one. Docker volume create, let's give a name my volume. Okay, so new volume is created. Let's list down the volumes. Docker volume ls. Okay, so we have created this. We can also inspect the volume. Docker volume inspect my volume. Okay, this shows the information like when it was created, also the mount point. So this is the location on your storage, the name of the volume. Okay, now if you want to delete this volume, we can simply do docker volume, and we will do rm and give the name of the volume my volume. So let's see if it is deleted. Okay, so we don't have any volume.